3, 2, 1, and episode 2, and we're away. Dominic, how's it going?
Well, that hesitation says it all, doesn't it? Because I don't even know what we are, where we are, who you are, who I am. We don't know what's going on. But at the end of the day, apparently this is Chasin the Racing Part 2. So let's jump straight into it by a couple of... Well, let's remind everyone who we are. And now, I'm a total knacker. And you're the world's sexiest maths teacher, Chris, the Racin Rouse. Ladies and gentlemen, here he is.
And opposite me, we've got Dominic, Dom, the Bomb Herbertson.
Oh, well done. You got it right this time. I'm over the moon because last time you were a bit of a mumbling psychopath. It was great. You're like, it was great.
So, Dom, what you been up to this week?
Well, it's been a very difficult week. Obviously, we're all human and we all go through difficult times. But we're going to start these shows out. I know it's the only second episode in, but we're going to try and dedicate shows and talk about sponsors, and try and get them in. Who's helping out with the show. But I would like to start this episode off. Talking about one of my friends who sadly passed away from cancer this week, and it was amazing that the send off he had, and that man was called Sean Holiday. I met him through racing. He came to the TT and he became a sponsor of mine, and then sponsorship became friends, and then we built a team together, and it was just absolutely an honour to meet the man. And on the Monday we had a funeral, a hell of a send-off. I mean, Chris, you couldn't believe the amount of people that was there. And I mean, being a North East lad himself, we're a very close community up here, as well as, in reflection, that is the same as the racing. Now, Holly only just got into it, but he made a big impact for such a small little lad. He made such a big impact, and it was a real pleasure, and, to put it blunt, a hell of an honour to know the man. And, it's great that this is all up and going, and we can dedicate this to him, and it's great. So no, Chrissy, honestly, thank you so much for letting me get that out there. But bar that, as even on the same note as Holly, death and taxes, that's been my week. It's been very much, he hated the tax man, and I've been dealing with my accountant all day, and he's been a right pain in the arse. No, I take that back if he's listening, because I'm screwed without him. It goes without saying. Everyone love your accountant out there. It's like pets. Love your pets and love your accountant. I can't clear that up enough. Your accountant can ruin your life very quickly. So, enough about that. How was your week, son?
I mean, steady week, but I've got to say, I've been absolutely blown away with all the response that we've had from our first episode.
It's been brilliant.
Obviously, just stuck it out there. I don't suppose I was expecting a lot, and but the feedback that we've had, I mean, the first day, I think it was about 200 or 300 people listened to the podcast, and so many positive messages, all the Twitter responses. So yeah, to be honest, I've spent most of the week just thinking about ideas about what we can talk about and what guests we can have on, topics.
Have you been sleeping? I was about to say, can you sleep at night now?
No.
Me, I'm just out like a bleeding light. But it's great. My phone's going all the time, people. I'm telling you, it's just rouse. I've got an idea. I've got this. I've got that. So it's great to have such a positive feedback and everything. I'm getting little bits, obviously. Now I'm going to drag him into this, but he's in charge of this little the Twitter page and the Instagram page and have you got a Facebook page yet?
We're just on Twitter at the moment, so
right. Well, there you go. I'm telling everyone about Instagram. There you go. So it's not quite up and going yet, but no, you're doing an awesome job, son. That's all you need to know. I've just remembered something. We're both in trouble, aren't we? Would you like to tell him? Would you like to tell him how we're in trouble?
Aye, so from the first episode, it transpired about where the name of the podcast came, and I willfully took all the credit for chasing the race, and when actually it was actually my girlfriend Emily who came up with the name, and I got into a little bit of trouble when I got home, but to settle the score. That's it.
Settle the score. There we go. And also, hey, let's get all these lovely little apologies out the way. Straight off the bat. My sister, the Guru Tech, is very what's his basement spunk? That's a pound in the swear jar. We'll talk about that later on.
Garage band.
Garage band, that's the one. So I know she's kindly got us up and going again. And thank you so much, Samantha. I know you're listening to keep an eye on us, because I'm probably a little bit too close to the mic or too far away or anything like that.
Spot on. So in the world of motorbike racing this week, there hasn't been a great deal happening. Obviously, there was a bit of testing in World Superbikes over at Jerez.
Was it?
Yeah. So
See, I'm learning every time on this show. It's great.
Obviously, there's been a few new additions and changes in teams. Leon Haslam, obviously, going from British Superbikes into the factory World Superbike team.
Was that announced last year, though? Or
yes,
was that...
he moved across. But so the testing times, Alex Lowe's was actually the fastest. He went under the lap record to post the fastest time of the day. Just behind him, I think it was 0.08 of a second, Johnny Ray. Leon Haslam, third, Top Rack, Van der Mark.
Bloody hell.
The two BMW lads out there, so Marcus Reitenberg and Tom Sykes, didn't put the transponders on, but apparently they were very competitive.
That's my excuse. I do that every time I go to a race meeting and say, I forgot the transponder again. No, I tell you what though, that's saying a lot about the Yamahas, though, isn't it? You know what I mean? You know when the new R1 came out, it was like, all right, sounds amazing. When you look at it aesthetically, it's my favourite bike, mind. You know what I mean? It looks amazing.
It sounds mint as well.
Oh, it does, doesn't it? It's just like honestly, it's like Whitney Houston whispering in your ears, like, it's just not that bassy, but you can imagine what the imagery that's going into your head here. But no, but the bike in itself, as a standard package, is not. You need a lot of work to chuck at it, in my opinion. You know what I mean? It's not like a BMW that we both know that you can just hop on and off you go. But the Yamaha needs a lot of work. But when you look at Taron McKenzie, there's a case in point. Like Josh Brooks for a start, you know what I mean? He's always been fast on one. Taron McKenzie. Alex, look, sorry, you were saying he's under the lap record now.
Under the lap record.
In January.
Exactly.
In January. Where are they? Jerez? Rush hour somewhere.
Spain.
Grant. There you go. See, my geography goes no further than the woods. But in January in Spain, they're doing that. How are they doing that? When you think about heat's such a big thing in our sport, and everyone, itsy bitsy teeny weeny little polka dot bikinis and all that.
You do actually see quite a few lap records going at Jerez earlier on in the season. Due to the temperature, because once the temperature gets above, I think the optimum temperature is around, it's mid-20s, I think. So when the superbikes actually go to Jerez in the summer, it's actually past that point of being optimal, and it starts to fall back off, and it's too hot to put in good times.
So is that the Pirellis, or is that just tyres in general, do you think?
Well, obviously the World Superbikes are on control Pirelli tyres, so they don't have a choice. Yeah, same as BSB. So it's hard to say whether it's just Pirellis or other tyre manufacturers. But I've actually rode at Jerez in ridiculous temperatures, and it was that hot you couldn't walk along pit lane with your socks and shoes off, because it was, do you know when you go to a beach and it's mega hot and you're like dancing around
like a lizard gecko. To do that again, no one could see this, but we had a lovely little action there, little arm going. It was great.
It actually falls back off, and it's like riding on not riding on marbles, but you're sliding around a lot more, and it's actually difficult to get the traction. So yeah, it is actually quite common to see real fast lap times in testing, and then when they actually race there, sometimes the lap times are a little bit slower, which sounds a little bit counterintuitive. But
word of the day. We're going to have to put word of the day on there. I'm not even going to pronounce that. We've got swear-jar, we've got Marshall, we've got Ryder, and we've definitely got... Say that word again, a bit slower for all the female listeners out there.
Counterintuitive.
Go on, a bit slower.
Counterintuitive.
Well done, there you go. The followers are going to go through the roof here. This is great.
Right, so let's topics for today.
Hold on, let's go back one. Honestly, I'm finding that really interesting, though. So you're saying pretty much all these hot tracks pretty much can go faster in colder conditions. Yeah,
definitely. The optimal sort of temperature is for superbikes on the slicks. Once it gets over, I'm sure it's about 20 degrees. Then the essentially the grip starts to fall. So
All right.
obviously you know what it's like racing in England if it's too cold and you have that horrible feeling of
Glass.
like a vague
It's like
vague
glass.
feeling in the front especially, and it's so easy to just for the tires just to snap away from you. Then it sort of gets, imagine like a bell-shaped graph. So as the temperature is really low, the grip's low, and then it increases until it gets to a peak, and then it like imagine, like if you were say in bed and you stuck your leg up in a quilt, and like your quilt would follow that sort of bell shape, like a normal distribution shape.
And then you've got temperatures running alongside that.
And I'm pretty sure the optimal, especially for the Pirellis, is around 20 degrees. So
that's actually surprisingly quite low.
Yeah,
to be fair,
you would never get 20 degrees in the middle of summer at Jerez. You know, it can be it's very, very warm part. Obviously, it's much closer to the equator than what we are. So you get to see temperatures of high 30s, sometimes even into the 40s in mid.
That's
midsummer.
Interesting. There we go.
But
sorry for that. Throwing you off that. That was dead interesting. That.
No worries. So topics for this week. We threw it out on Twitter just for like sort of suggestions, and we've received loads of tweets with talking about different topics. But I thought a good place to start would be: is motocross a necessity for top level racers to keep up with the fitness? Obviously, after the news of Jorge Lorenzo breaking his scaphoid this week, putting him out of the Sepang test, is the risk worth the reward? We're then going to talk about the future of Oliver's mount. So personally, I don't know a great deal about that, but I've done a little bit of digging, and I think you have too.
Bit of gossip. Oh no, I know the gossip. I know plenty. I've spoken to a lot of people with a lot of opinions, but sadly, well, facts are facts, and if you've got one, I'm looking forward to hearing it. And
finally, we're going to look at how to prepare for your first go of the Isle of Man TT course. Obviously, sitting opposite a top-class TT racer.
Now, hold on. Come on, let's not feed lies. Facts is what we're about, not lies like that.
For me, I would absolutely love to have an insight into how you mentally and physically prepare yourself to take on the is it 33 mile?
37, young'un.
37 mile course,
40 miles
over on the island at those sort of speeds. So we'll talk about that, and then we'll close up. So topic number 1, motocross. What's your views on that?
I would love to have a motocross. to put it blunt, like at the end of the day, we're both very passionate motorcycle racers. Like obviously in the last show you were talking about how you love your winter break, but me, I would love to have a motocross. Absolutely love to, But like you say, there is a risk and reward in that. But you could say the same about track days, wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely. That there has to be some sort of limit on the amount of danger that you can put yourself in between the races, where it's that risk is worth the extra gains. So some would argue. Well, I mean, look at the facts. Virtually every MotoGP racer is training on motocross.
Is a motocrosser.
They're taking those risks. So they obviously feel they're not stupid lads. They're not doing it just to enjoy themselves.
The professionals.
Exactly.
They're millionaires.
And they're doing that because they genuinely believe that the increase in their skills from training motocross, those skills are then transferable onto the tarmac, and therefore has given them an advantage when it comes to MotoGP or World Superbikes or whatever. I'm not so sure if it's as common when you look at things like BSB. I'm not sure how many of the top class riders are training motocross through the winter. I presume quite a few of them will be, but obviously not as much as MotoGP.
But obviously the people that you follow on Instagram and stuff like that are like, you follow like your Richard Coopers, your Kyle Rides and your Lee Jacksons and stuff. They're always out flat tracking and they're always out on the motocross bikes, and there's got to be something to be had. At the end of the day, it's muscle memory, isn't it?
That's it.
You're constantly training your brain again, just go fast.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you look at the notable exceptions like Valentino Rossi in 2017 broke his leg.
Was it that
doing
recent?
Motocross. It was. He did actually break his leg in 2010 at a real fast crash at Mugello.
Was that during racing though?
Yeah, on
right.
the tarmac. but then he crashed again in a train accident and fractured I think it was his tibia and his fibia, and that put a massive dent into his season. It could have potentially cost him a world championship, and he's not the only one. You look around and there's been lots of injuries through motocross, which have then transpired to causing problems when it's come to their actual job, MotoGP. But like I say, they obviously feel like there's a benefit from doing it.
Well, have you done much motocross?
I funny should ask. I actually started motocross racing, so before I
Really?
was a road racer, so basically when I first started riding, it was just like on the heaps and like just messing around when I was a 7-year-old.
Learning the clutch.
And then my first gear bike was a little RM65, and I started just racing around the northeast of England, so like motocross, just me and my dad. It was mint times, but like learning to ride and race a motorbike. I remember those days well. Back then, you had to take a marshal, so me and my dad would go away, and my dad would then go and marshal.
Bring a packed lunch and a marshal, kids, and let's go racing.
He would have to go and marshal, and I was 10-year-old, and I would have to get myself ready for the race and go down the start line and sort of do everything myself. Which is mental.
Like the gates and stuff.
Them gates. You get the whole shot.
Like me, I can't remember the last time I went to one. It was just mint to watch, man. Obviously, we've got pole position. You've got your organisation in the world. I know racing's never 100% safe, but when you go and look at a road race, not a road race, like a short circuit race, everyone's in their lovely little order, brolly dollies, tight little backsides and really tall heels. Then you go to a motocross, dog pen, and there's 50 of you lined up, and they're all off their faces on weed and that, and at a local meeting, way, and they're just howling off into the first corner. It's a hell of a sight.
It's a hell of a spectrum, especially if you stand behind the gate and you just see, like you say, 40 bikes all gunning for that one apex at the end.
The whole shot.
Whole shot. I tell you what, I've actually got a mint video. I'll try and hunt it out, and I'll stick it on Chasing the Racing Twitter page. But it's me mum stood behind filming, and I think I was either 9 or 10-year-old, and obviously holding the clutch, and then the gates drop, and I just drop the clutch and flip it.
You're joking. You've got to get that on. You've got to get that on.
And my mum's going, "Oh, son, get back on, go on." But
everyone will be watching your next start when the season gets going. They'll be like, "Go on, roof it."
Slightly sidetracking, but yeah. So from then, I then went up the ranks, got onto a 85, YZ85, and then my bike got nicked, and that's actually it's probably the shittest thing that's ever happened to us.
Pound in the job. Here we go, champion.
Shittest thing that's ever happened to us, but that then turned into the best thing that's ever happened to us, because it got us started on road racing, which is so. Do you know, it's funny in life.
Through a crime, mate. Yeah, one of Northeast's fastest riders. It's a love story, really.
Well, to be quite frank, I probably would never have got onto road racing if my bike wasn't nicked. Motocross racing, So it's one of those funny things in life where at the time you think it's the worst thing, and then looking back over the years, it's actually, it's still a terrible thing, obviously, getting your home broken into, and it wasn't insured, so it was a big, kick in the balls. But I would never have got road racing if it wasn't for that.
See, that's the biggest, for me personally, I love motocross, the discipline. Now, when you look at the whole sport in general, the fitness of these lads is phenomenal. They go out, in America, they're going around in 40 plus degrees heat, and then they come back in, and they're on cool down bikes, man. They've been out there for an hour, and I know what we're doing is very physical, but when you look at them lads, it is a different level. It really is.
Well, I think that's a lot of the reason for the lads training.
Exactly.
Because if you look at, say, a footballer, they play football. A tennis player would train playing tennis. It's not possible to get out on a MotoGP bike every day of the week, but you can get out on a motocross bike. It's a lot more accessible, so I think that's maybe one of the reasons. And it's a similar sort of fitness, your braking, your core strength for moving the bike around. But I haven't actually ridden a motocross bike since my bike got nicked when I was 11-year-old. So
you never thought about getting back? If someone came up to you and said, "Look, there you go, son. That, as a form of sponsorship, for example, there's a motocross bike, would you go do it? Because this is your own question here, and this is really good.
I would definitely have a bash. It would massively be in the back of my mind to not injure myself. So I would definitely not be pushing on 100%. But do you know what? I think Valentino Rossi's probably sort of learned from his mistakes, maybe from motocross, built himself the ranch, which is minimising the risk a lot because you don't have the big jumps where you maybe get injured.
And you're sliding
but
a lot more.
You're still getting the bike fitness, the racing, the sliding, throttle control, all that type of stuff. So I think probably as a compromise, I think that so you're still doing the racing, but you're not putting yourself at
as
too
much of a risk.
Aye, so
Lorenzo was generally up, like straight up motocrossing, not flat tracking or anything like that. I tell you what, he's built a flat tracker, Hickman. You see, he keeps popping up now and then, and he's you see, they're all going down the same route, and it's the way to do it. You know, if I had the money,
well, once we get this podcast off the ground,
they'll pay us to leave the podcast alone, and we'll have a couple of mansions. That's how much you'll need to pay us.
Aye.
But no, I think really, in short, to your answer, yeah, definitely, I really think it is a benefit. That's my take on it, because you're constantly reactivating your mind, aren't you? Because at the end of the day, we're sitting here on a -4 degrees on a Wednesday evening, chatting about racing and going bikes, and then, you know, the realistic side of it is, well, especially for me, and I know looking at you now, you would get on a bike tomorrow.
Oh, aye, absolutely. I'm pretty sure Zarco is the only top class rider in MotoGP that doesn't do motocross.
Never.
Or any other thing. I'm pretty sure he's the only one. Because I remember reading an article years ago where it was everyone saying that, you know, you had to do motocross. And he sort of stood out as being the only one that, doesn't.
So what does he do then?
I'm not sure. Maybe what do French people do?
Orgies. Now there's fitness for you, young. Straight up orgies. So anyway, on that awkward note, let's talk about on that lovely awkward note, let's talk about your second subject.
Yes. So future of Oliver's Mount. Now I've got to start this by saying I don't know a great deal about it. So down at the North Yorkshire Road Racing Supporters Club, I hear it mentioned quite a bit, and people talking about it, whether there's going to be racing there this year or not. And I've heard a lot of sort of rumours and sort of bad blood about it at the moment.
Sadly, to put it blunt, you're right. There is a lot of bad blood about it, you know. But like everything, you know, ups and downs, you know. This is going to be a good subject, this, because it is. It's touching ground with a lot. It really is.
So, enlighten us on what, you know, your take on things. What's happening down there?
Well, very much it's my take on it. You know, it's obviously there was a couple of incidents in the last Gold Cup. You know, some very big ones, and unfortunately a couple of spectators got hurt. Now, you know, at the end of the day, the lads went out racing, you know, and they came off the bikes, and unfortunately people got the aftermath of that, and it sprung up a lot of questions. Now, sometimes in the bad you've got to look at the good, and that is actually try to promote more safety element of it. I know it's road racing and it hasn't changed, but when you look at the old photos of people overhanging barriers and everything, you know, and that raw sense of road racing is going. But you've got to move with the times, because if you don't move with the times, we'll lose something forever. And sadly, that's what's happening here. You know, the answers are coming forward. You know, the questions are being asked and the answers are coming forward, but what's happening? What is happening? Nothing's happening. You know, and sadly, if they don't keep this thing moving, if they don't bring Oliver's Mount back soon, how are they going to get it going again?
Aye. Well, you know, obviously we decided to speak about this on this podcast, so I did a little bit of digging and sort of messaging around, and the only sort of information that I sort of gathered was quite a senior figure in the sport told us that there is definitely going to be some racing there, and there's lots going on behind the scenes, and there's a promoter that's very keen to get things sorted, and the ball's in motion, but it seems to be very like under wraps at the moment. And I think a lot of the frustration of the fans is they're so keen to get the racing back, They love the racing. They live, a lot of local people. A lot of people who are listening to this will be quite local to Scarborough, and there's just that sort of sense of being, kept out of things. They don't know what's going on, getting frustrated, and then they keep getting promised, oh, it's coming, it's coming, it's coming. A little bit like, the Circuit of Wales. That went on for years, where it was like, it's definitely going to be here next year, it's definitely going to be here the year after, it's definitely going to be here, and then it all seems to fade out. But
that's it, the hype goes. But see, the biggest problem is they've lost loads of trust. Whoever they organise it now, I'm speaking here as a road racer. I wanted to come back. I only went a couple of times. Now, it was like the first time I went, it cost me nearly 600 quid in entries. You didn't get a lot of time on the track and everything, but take that to a side, it was great. It was absolutely great. But the way they ran things, in my opinion, like I say, this is a podcast. This is not, say what you want to us, but this is my opinion. And it was ran shockingly, really. And there was some big accidents, and the way it was ran, not the best. So they've got a huge hill to climb, a humongous hill to climb, because at the end of the day, there's people who have paid for their entries and haven't got their money back. And that's when it got cancelled. There's people who have paid 25 quid plus per person to go through that gate, never got their money back. Advance passes for, camping and everything. That is a lot of bad blood. And, that's what you should call this show. Bad blood, on this one. Great title for it. But, without restructuring, without addressing safety, and quite frankly, money, times are hard. Times are hard, and it's a bit like you hand money over to someone. You want a finished article on it, and if I wanted to get going again. And there's a lot of races out there, and more importantly, like you said, there's a lot of fans out there that want to get that going again. And I've spoken to a few people. I've got a lot of other people's opinions, and we're all on the same wavelength. And like you said, there's lots of questions, but not where's the answers?
Right.
Where's the answers?
We'll have to sort of see over the next few months, if it is definitely going to be, something happening this year, then obviously it'll be announced sometime soon. And I guess just fingers crossed. And I guess it's a great event for this part of the country.
Have you been down to spectate?
I've never been. No.
You've never been?
Never been to Scarborough. There's loads of people that have, especially at the North Yorkshire Club, that have like hammering us about going all the time. But I've just never had the opportunity, and just yeah.
So the only road race you've ever been to is the TT. Is that right? Or you been any others?
Not Isle of Man TT. Yeah, I've been there twice.
You've been at the TT twice?
Twice, yeah, and that's it. Yeah.
You definitely need to go to a road. Like, you need to go. The TT, the thing is, the TT is so well ran. You know what I mean? It's the biggest road race in the world, But you need to go, to put it blunt, and I'm probably going to get slapped about a bit for this, but you need to go to a national meeting. It's ran by families, really. You know what I mean? And to get it up and going, and it's similar, same. Well, to put it like the Irish stuff is really well ran. They just get out on the road, no messing about. It's just proper Irish way of doing things. It's like, look, you're here to do something, get on with it. But Oliver's Mount, that is a very difficult subject, and there's too many. It's a great question and a bad question, because there's so many arrows pointing in different directions. It's like, well, someone just give me a fucking answer.
Well, I guess hopefully if there's new promoters involved, then hopefully there'll be new fresh people in there.
Definitely.
They'll move it in the right direction, get the ball going again, and hopefully move on to bigger and better things. And hopefully we'll have another Cock of the North next year.
A Cock of the North. There's a couple sitting right here, isn't there? You know what I mean? But we've already got that title sorted, haven't we, mate?
Spot on. And for our last topic, the final topic for today.
Oh God.
Someone mentioned this on Twitter, and I just thought it's a fantastic idea. It's something I've personally always wondered, and I guess it's a perfect opportunity to interview somebody who's been there and done that. So the question was about how do you prepare for your first time at the TT? So, I mean, how old were you when you first went over to the Isle of Man?
Trying to think now. No, the first time I ever went over, you see, my dad's raced my entire life, you know what I mean, as far as I can remember, and he's always been in classic racing, because raising 3 kids, he was very lucky that someone said, "There you go, Mark. You've got a bike to play on, you lucky swine." But we always used to go to the Isle of Man as a family. You know, we never went to Barbados or Mallorca or anything like that, or Corfu or Benidorm, or I'm just making up random names here. But no, it was our family holiday. You know, my mum looked after us with the wellies and everything, and we used to just go watch Dad racing, and we didn't know any better. You know, at that point, when you're that young, you're not really soaking things in. And it's only when I got older, I thought, I'll tell you what, this is starting to get a hold of us here. And then I thought, well, it's about time I got into this. But sadly, we never had the money to go, there you go, there's a motocross bike or anything like that. So I got into it when I was, well, first time I got on a racetrack when I was 21. You know,
That's amazing in this day and age where, you know, like you see hundreds of kids out on these mini bikes when they're sort of 5, 6, 7-year-old. So to be where you are, I know you're very modest and you know you play yourself down all the time, but to be sat where you are with what you've achieved, bear in mind you've had nothing handed to you on a plate. 21-year-old first go on a bike, you know, that's like the good old days. You know, Niall Mackenzie, I think, was similar sort of age. He used to ride to the tracks on his road bike, race, and then ride home.
You know, back when men were men. At the end of the day, it's like anything. You know, it's like I was never lucky enough to have that infrastructure. You know, don't get me wrong. I had awesome parents. You know, it was just it's down to money at the end of the day. And obviously, I got a job at 16. And then just built it up from there. Then obviously when I could afford to get a driving licence, I had to get a driving licence, and I had to get a bike licence, because then I could skip race school, you see. So I got my bike licence first, and then I was going to work, I had to pay for my qualifications to go to work, and then I bought a race bike, and I went, well, I haven't got anything else like levers, helmets or anything. So it was actually 21 when I first got on a bike. Then I did 1 year, what is it? It's with the ACU, it's 10 signatures over 3 different tracks. I did that in 1 season. Then it was 2013, I did my first Manx. But you see, at that point, I was working all the time. You know, in the ideal way, you want to go and do laps. You want to get in the car. You want to go see Milky Quail. And you want to, like, Peter Hickman, I can't say this for a fact, but he was banging in, like, over 100 laps in a month or something stupid like that. We'll have to ring him up and get an exact figure on that. But you know, the way I did it was I was just going around with my dad in the van. He's going, yep, left here, right there, go up there, down here, different die there, different hit this, look at that, don't look at the sun, it'll burn your eyes, blah, 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 blah. And, you know, I had to learn progressively like a lot of other riders. Like, you had to just bring it, like, soak it in while you were doing the job. And my first time, it was a bog stock SV650. It had a standard front, a standard rear shock. It was absolutely class, man. I was over the moon with it, and it rode like honestly like a pogo stick on a pile of jelly. It was just utter crap. But yeah, I had a smile like from ear to ear, and that's it. The thing that stood out most for me about the Isle of Man, and I'll never forget this, was my first flying lap. You know, every person who's been round the Isle of Man, not even racing it, you remember your first lap. And I remember coming over the mountain, and it was coming in dusk. We were like last practice, because all the newcomers, you know, you did your controlled lap, and yeah, you soaked it in, but it didn't really quite. You just kind of just got so target fixation on the guy in front, and it didn't really come together. But your first flying lap, we were last out, and I was coming over the top out of Ramsey, and it was like someone switched the lights out. You could see Douglas start to light up, and I remember riding over the top going, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. And I just went, this is incredible, absolutely incredible. I pulled in, smiling. My dad's looking at us going, oh, shit. You know what I mean? And my mother walked in, saw me face, and went, oh, that's it. That's all he wants to do. And I'm going, this is incredible. And my dad went and got the timing sheet. So I think, I'm trying to think how many newcomers there were that year. I think there was like 40 odd, because it was the Manx. You can get more newcomers in. And at the Manx, and I think I was second off the bottom, and I think it was like a 72 mile an hour lap. And my dad, right, there's us in a crappy little camper van, right, like caravan with the awning over, and he just chucks this bit of paper on us, looks us in the eye and goes, well, you're never going to make a TT race, right? And I just thought, I remember looking up, and I was like nearly bubbling. I was like, but it was, you know, it's something that definitely sunk in. But you see, at that exact point, now my dad didn't mean anything by that. but it just made you realise, yes, I did crap. I did utter shite, to be fair. But it just makes you think, I want to keep going. So, in like, with the answer, like, as far as preparation, I never had time, you know, like a lot of people don't. You know, I couldn't afford time off work to go, and I just thought, the more I go, the more I learn. And it was very much a steady progression. So 2013, I went, and at the end of that 2 weeks, you know, with the mixed timing, I ended up doing 103 on a 72 brake horsepower SV, you know, 102, 103 or something like that. Then I went to my first TT. All I ever wanted to do was ride a big bike around the TT course. That's all, you know, the senior, you know, like, that's all I've ever wanted to do. And went there and learned a bit more, but they only let me in on a 600. Then when I got on the 600, I ended up doing 117, and that is the first time I ever raced the 600, you know. Yeah, first time I ever hopped in my ZX6. I bought it from a dodgy Glaswegian bloke, like as a road bike. I built it with my dad, ran out of money. We just put a standard shock in it, and the first time I ever raced the 600 was down Bray Hill. Bloody hell. So I've gone from a 72 to 100. What's a ZX6?
It'd be like a
road, like stock one,
something like
123.
That's a decent one, yeah.
Exactly, aye. So that was the next time that was the first time I rode a 600 was down Bray Hill, and like it was mind blowing. So I ended up doing 117. Then I bought my first 1000 because they let me in the 1000 class the next year. Honda Fireblade. I bought that off Lee Johnson. It was 164 brake horsepower. And then
that's shite now for 1,000.
It's phenomenal, isn't it? You know what I mean? That was.
I'm
trying to think when did they make the blades? 2000 and. Oh God, there's a fact that we're gonna have to brush up on next time, innit? So I bought the blade anyway, and I did 121 in that year. So we've gone 14. That was 15. 16. I bought the BMW with my friend Holly and Stephen. You know, and from that point, we did 125, and that was I'm losing track here. So like 15, 16, so 16, 17, I did 126. Then this year, 2018, I did 128 mile an hour. Now I know that doesn't seem like a lot, but it
it definitely does.
That's it. But when you think you've got your animals going around there, 130 plus, but I'm still learning to ride a bike, as well as trying to compete with the money I've got, you know. And at the end of the day, I'm not the only person out there. You've got loads of people like us out there. You've got, you know, the list is that big. There's loads of us privateers. You know, I was on the phone to Craig Neve today. He's a good lad, privateer lad. You know, I tell you what, I'm gonna write a list and shout out every privateer that's going there, and that can fill in a comfortable hour nicely. But no, as far as learning, you never stop learning. They say it takes 3 to 5 years to learn the place. But even so, look at what the top lads are doing. They are learning every time, you know. And obviously with the Isle of Man government, you know, they're making the track safer each time, you know, and they're just starting it, you know, just taking around the bumps, the edges. And it's still very much a road race, but it's just them little, put it blunt, impurities and just making it smooth out. And it is getting faster and faster. Well, I don't have to tell you. Look at what's happening. It's getting so quick.
Like you say, I mean, 128, go back 5 or 6 years, that would have been like, you know, one of the proper, you know, front running times. I mean, what year was it when John McGuinness did the first 130?
Oh my God.
You would have been racing then, wouldn't you?
Oh God. No, I wasn't. I wouldn't have been I think I might have been. But you see, like, that's terrible. I'm writing these things down so I can bring it back next time. You know what I mean?
It wasn't. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I know. Like David Jeffries,
and I mean now 135.
135.5. It's not even. It's not even just into a 35. It's bang in the middle, man. And you just think, what the bloody hell?
And I mean, do you know, in between TT to TT, do you get over at the Isle of Man to do any laps like in a van, or do you? I know a lot of the lads have the PlayStation game, so in fact I was speaking to Peter Hickman it was after his first year there, and he was saying he was going over all the time with Milky, getting, you know, tours around the lap, getting hire cars, just smashing every free weekend or whatever he was going over there and just doing lap after lap after lap, and just had the full track in his head, so he knew exactly where he was going. And then he was saying that he got the PlayStation game, and he was, instead of doing the gears like where the PlayStation would want you to, he was just like sacrificing his lap times on the the PS3, and he was doing his actual gear changes so that he was replicating. So when you were saying about
That's
muscle
interesting,
memory,
aye.
so it was just when he actually raced there, he was, he'd done hundreds of laps on the PlayStation. doing the
His
same
head's
gears,
already up.
which I think is a really sort of smart way of doing it. But yeah, I
That's
mean,
interesting, mind. See, you're learning every time, mind. You're learning every time.
have you seen that new game? Is it Bike 3, something like that?
Ride 3. Or
Ride
something,
3,
yeah,
aye,
Ride 3.
aye.
Yeah.
See, I don't do any of the PlayStation games, Xbox. I've never had anything like that. So wasting me youth on any game stations.
On
or
mobiles
anything.
getting your bikes pinched.
But someone tweeted us actually the other day, and they'd made a replica, like my bike from last year on the Mizuno Suzuki. They'd made a replica. So if anyone that plays on, is it Ride 3?
Ride 3, aye.
I think if you go like Mizuno 69 or something like that, or Route 69 or whatever,
It's on there.
You can download me as a sort of.
You know you've made it when you've ended up on an Xbox game or PlayStation game. That's
Really
class.
high. But I mean, of the TT course now, when you're out there, do you just know exactly where you're going, all the blind crests, bumps, everything? Can you do a lap in your head where you know all your braking points, your turning points, apexes, like exactly, or is it still a little bit blurry for you?
No, I very much know that, but it's about changing that for me now. To try and make myself go faster. It's like I know my own braking points, but to put it blunt, I needed to go deeper, and it's a confidence exercise. I'm constantly learning. Like they are. It's about a little bit more, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and with the track changes, you've got to adapt to that because you're going in like, where's that bump? And you're like, oh, there's not a bump there, but sometimes it can go the other way around. They can try and fix one problem, and it creates another down the line, and it's a constant battle. And you never go to the Isle of Man and it's the same track twice. That's the realistic side of it, constantly changing. But I'm like, yeah, to be fair, to put it bluntly, answer, yeah, I know where I'm going, but it's learning how to go fast. That's the secret.
And over the years, have you ever had a time where you've been like pinned thinking you're doing the business, and then say Hutchie or Dunlop's just flew past you and you've been like, shit?
Honestly, I'm not kidding. Bruce Anstey went through me like a cheap slapper one year, and I thought I was absolutely howling. I'm not kidding. It was just like this old Kiwi man just went, whoa!
Was that on the 2-stroke?
No, that was on the that MotoGP bike they bought, Padgett's bought. The RC.
Oh, yes, RC. What, is it 12 or something like that?
It was,
well, that's the bike that Rutter raced at Macau this year, isn't it?
Honestly, they're just beautiful. I can't even. They're just like. It was pottery just going past you. Just thought, oh, I'd do that again, but don't in the same breath. It was quite violating, to be fair. It was great.
And I remember it was a few months ago actually, we were chatting about just TT and stuff, and you told us a story about you and your dad out on the classic bikes, and you described a couple of we were flying through together or something. And I was on YouTube the other day, and I don't know if you know, but there's a video of you and your dad flying past, like a flyby.
Oh God!
Of you and your dad on the classic bikes. But I mean, that must have been an unbelievably special feeling to actually get out on the world's most famous, best track in the world with your dad flying about. Like, there's not many fathers and sons can say they've done that.
That's it. And no, I'm very, very lucky to share that experience with him. But you don't feel like that when you're there. You just want to beat your old man. That's it. Like, all love goes out the window, and you're just like, listen up, old man. Pull up to the side and put your slippers on, young'un. This is how you do it. But no, you can still teach me around there, mind. But no, I've been very lucky to have that in my life, and long may that last. May that last.
I've actually only had like my dad didn't race. He had road bikes when he was a youngster.
Aye.
But there's nobody been in my family that's raced bikes. So like
you're the first.
Yeah.
You're the first generation.
First generation.
You've done a hell of a job, mind.
Obviously, my dad's been. Well, my whole family's been a massive influence in getting us out there racing.
Yeah.
And me and my dad have done it for years. And I was actually last week, the episode filled up my space on my Mac, so I've been deleting stuff off, and I came across some videos from when I first started racing with my dad, and he used to do these like video diaries, and it was like back in like 2009, and talking about like leaning the bike, like the weather had improved, so I would lean the bike off, and I was battling for 20th position in the Aprilia Super Deans or something.
Good lad.
And just what special times they were. But a couple of years ago, I had an amazing experience when my dad actually did a track day over in Spain, and I got to go out we were both out on 600s, and I was teaching him, and because he's never been on track before, I was teaching him, and I taught him how to get his knee down, and by the end of the few days, we're cracking on a little bit. My dad's
good lad.
For not racing, he did really well, and that was just, there was a moment when there was only me and him in view. I couldn't see any other bikes, and we were flying down like the back straight at Almeria, and yes, just such a special thing after all those years of going racing to actually be on track together. And I remember I was on can you remember the Haribo Star Mix Triumph?
Oh yeah, that's made me hungry now, actually, to be fair. I just want Haribo.
And my dad was on a CBR 600 and got on the back straight, and I just popped a big wheelie, and he came flying past, and I was just thinking, that is absolutely mint, like. But
that's me dad.
Just to wrap it up, what's your favourite part of the TT course?
Oh my God.
Do you have a favourite?
I've got a worse bit.
Go on then.
I'm crap over the mountain.
Right.
Honestly, my brain just goes to shite on the mountain. I don't know what it is. And I know my weakness, I've got to work on it, but I'm trying to think where's particularly pornographic. Grieber Castle, it's when you just come over, it's blind, but it's like 3 bits of wall that kick out, and you aim for the second, you go all the way, it's like spreading butter youngin', you know what I mean? It's like all the way out and all the way back in. It's just so nice. But then, it's like, imagine grabbing a load of silk and wiping your ass with it. Exactly. It's that good. It's just that good. That's how Grieber feels to me. So if anyone ever watches me at Grieber, you'll see this dodgy, satisfied look on my face, and that's why.
I tell you what, I watched this year was coming out of it's really fast, left, right, and then you come out of a little village. Is it Kirkby Steve?
Kirkmichael.
Yeah, sorry, Kirkmichael. There's a petrol station on the left on the way out.
Red coloured.
Yes, that's it. And we're watching right at the end of that, and by God, it's fast through there. But it looks like an amazing experience.
One day we'll get you there. Hope your mother's not listening, but we'll get you there one day.
Not for me, I don't think. But
and that's going to be an episode in the future, mine. I'm definitely going to have to sit him down and figure out, what your mindset is about actual road racing. But, when we're looking at the time here, you'll all be sick of us listening for the second episode. But, even to wrap things up nice and lovely, we're still trying to figure out with this system how to get people on board as far as conversations. But we're getting there, though. You've got an idea.
On that, I think I've, figured out how to sort the interviews. So from next week, we're looking to get a guest on. I think we're going to start with the marshal. So
Brilliant.
If anyone listening knows any special marshals, anyone that you would like to nominate to be on the first marshal for the podcast, please go over to our Twitter page. So that's at Motorbike and either tag the person in it or just suggest the name. We'll pick somebody, do a little interview with them on Skype, and then we'll stick that on to the next podcast.
Awesome.
And we've also looking for the charity swear jar. Now, we've had a few suggestions for the charity in question. So would you like to fire away with one of the suggestions?
Well, one of the ones I would like to go for is obviously, like we said, we dedicated this show to my friend Holly, who passed away with cancer. And I think obviously with the connection within the sport, I think the fuck cancer one, the F13K, Lee Johnson started
the swear jar as well.
Very good. That's it. I never even thought of that. That's how slow I am. I think definitely the fuck cancer campaign, I think it's absolutely brilliant. And Lee's done a tremendous job, and he went through a lot of tremendous personal loss. So I personally think that's a great one. And what about yourself? Which one would you like to recommend?
Yes, so I'm going to suggest the Ben Gautry Foundation.
Brilliant.
So, when I first started racing, Ben was actually the Super Teen rep in 2009 when I first started racing. And then he tragically lost his life at Cadwell Park in 2011.
Right.
And his family have set up the Ben Gautry Foundation to support young athletes, racers and other sports to give them the financial support that they need to chase the dreams. So that's my nomination. And then we'll do 3 nominations, stick it on Twitter as a poll, and then the the people who are listening to the podcast can go over and they can decide. So go on,
Definitely.
The third suggestion.
Well, obviously, there's loads and loads of charities, and don't worry, swearing's not going to run out of habit on any part of the world, which is great. But yeah, obviously, you've got the Injured Riders Fund, you've got Northern Air Ambulance, you've got the local air ambulance. But I think, obviously, with what you did for the charity, what Gary Dunlop set up, I think the William Dunlop Foundation is a given, because I think it's a new campaign, and it's a great charity, and I think they can go really, and it's going to help a lot of people. So, like he says, we're going to stick this out there, put it on Twitter, and find out. Oops, I'm just knocking the microphone over here. But I think we'll get it out there and let you lovely people decide on it, and we'll put the money into there. Now, obviously, the people that have been paying attention to both episodes, if you could give us both an update on how much we've actually swore, that would be great, because then we can find out exactly how much to put in the jar. But I've got a comfortable feeling, you should round it up, because at the end of the day, it's for a good cause, and I think that's important.
Absolutely. Well, thanks very much, and we'll be recording again next week. So
hopefully.
So look out for episode 3. But yeah, thanks again for all your support. We're now on Spotify, iTunes, but basically anywhere you can get podcasts. The Chasin the Racing is there. So if you can go onto the iTunes, if you've got an Apple or an Android phone, if you go to the podcast app, you can, through iTunes, I think, you can subscribe, and if you can leave us a 5-star rating and a nice comment, that would be massively appreciated, and obviously just helps us boost up the podcast rankings.
That's the one, young'un. Bear in mind, if anyone didn't get any of that, I'm still learning myself. Now, the good thing about these things is you can play them again and again and again, which is great. But no, Chrissy, yet again, awesome job, son, and looking forward to the next one.
Brilliant. Have a good week. Thanks for listening.
See you later.
Goodbye.